Hey, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri Appellate Attorney. I'm retired, and this is not legal advice. Everything I say is simply commenting on the law. And this will be what we're commenting on today. Well, one of my subscribers, and you know who you are, suggested that maybe I should do a reaction video to Sarah Boone's sentencing. I had really thought that after the jury had convicted her that I might just be through with this case, but someone else had a different thought, and I'm in the position where I can certainly grant that wish, even though I really had no desire whatsoever to dip even my toe into that bubbling, caustic cauldron of controlling behavior or examine that nasty nest of nuclear level narcissism. But here we are. When a lawyer sits down with a client after a conviction and after the pre-sentence report is done, he tells that person that when they testify at the sentencing hearing, they have one audience in the courtroom, and that is the judge. And they have to be careful. They have to be very careful and judicious about what they say to the judge. Sarah, however, apparently didn't listen to this. She starts her narrative testimony, which is allowed in a sentencing hearing. She started this narrative testimony with an introduction where she attempts to remind everybody that this is her show and she is the star.
This is actually an edited version of. I had a lot to say. I've had a lot of time to think about things, and I didn't really know how to put it on paper, and I didn't know how much I could say or how little I should say. So what I have here is, like I said, an edited version. But I would like to read the more important parts that I feel that everyone should know that wasn't said in my actual trial. And on top of what I have on paper, this is just the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg. So I wanted to read this, and then, if I may, I would like to address everyone in my apology on top of my statement.
Sarah then explains that she's been broken. She's been broken like Japanese china, which has an interesting juxtaposition of terms, I think. But she's been repaired with gold.
Kintō tsukuroi is a kind of Japanese ceramic style which means to repair with gold. In this tradition, when a ceramic piece breaks, an artisan will fuse the pieces back together again using liquid gold or gold dust lacquer. So rather than being covered up, the breaks become more obvious and a brilliant new piece of art emerges from the brokenness. It embraces flaws, weakness, and imperfections, and also teaches the essence of resilience. Every crack in a ceramic piece is a part of its history, and each piece becomes more beautiful because it has been broken. This is the wisdom of Kintō tsukuroi.
Well, that's pretty much comedy gold, if nothing else. Her lawyer also likely told her that sentencing is not a time when you air petty grievances, and you have to first demonstrate an attitude of humility or contrition. You can see how well Sarah Boone demonstrated that contrite attitude here.
In my wisdom and with all of my repairs, then, now, and ongoing, God is, has been, and will always be my artisan. All of my gold is forgiveness. This has held me together, made me shine brighter, and overcome the damage caused by George Torres, the Torres family, the justice system, Orange County Corrections Department, social media, scoundrel detectives, infamy, defamation, ongoing constitutional rights violations, second-degree murder, forced into being pro se.
The lawyer will also tell the client that they need to be careful about criticizing the judge and the judicial system. The judge takes that personally, even if it isn't meant that way. So you tell them to say something like, I understand the jury has convicted me. I respect the jury verdict, even though I disagree with it. I know this was just a tragic accident. or something like that. What you don't do is something like this.
Forgiveness is not an attempt to change or forget who, what, or how you've lived through to be so gold, but an act of grace, humility, and considerable self-compassion to be set free from sorrow. Withholding forgiveness denies your brilliance and adds even greater grief and deeper heartache, irreparable cracks on top of the already that no one deserves, no matter the pain or disappointment, untruths or injustice. It doesn't matter, as the more broken you are, even though now different than before, you've become more outstanding and more extraordinary.
So apparently, the Orange County Jail has a pretty well-equipped library. It certainly came with a nice thesaurus, which enabled Sarah to come up with this beauty during her
My
rant.
goal begins with George Torres, and every time he slapped me, kicked, punched, spit on, raped, stabbed, choked, laughed at, pushed, pulled, dragged, whipped, tripped, stole from, lied, terrorized, threatened, humiliated, forced, degraded, made me cry. Every time he tried to end me, defeat, or destroy.
But the worst part of her entire sentencing was this.
I forgive George for beating me senseless, for trying to sleep because I had to go to work or my son's field trip the next day, for ruining my deceased family's heirlooms, traditions, and keepsakes, my son's furniture, destroying the television we watched together, for wrecking our townhome by breaking windows, punching holes in the walls and doors, ramming his entire body into glass doors, kicking in my front and back door over and over and over, for breaking or removing the locks from all of the doors and sometimes the knobs altogether.
Now, I'm sorry, but that's just awful. You murdered this guy. Maybe you should have forgiven him before you murdered him so you wouldn't have had to needed to kill him. Her last little part of this pity party was to exclaim that social media had made her a pariah.
It simply seems I cannot forgive and be forgiven and move forward. Social media has made me a pariah. It has caused great oppression and undeniable disadvantages, especially by broadcasting and manipulating my cases online. In my criminal case, as a result, my opportunities to be given a fair, proper, and uninfluenced, successful conclusion was heavily depleted and poisoned. I forgive them.
No, Sarah. No. Social media did not make you a pariah. You made you a pariah with your parade of lies and the circus generated by your firing of every lawyer appointed for you at Florida's expense. I just have to say, I don't know how Mr. Owens didn't take her into the back room after that sentencing and say, "Did you listen to a word I said to you? Did you understand that your fate was in the hands of the judge and you couldn't torque him off? What is wrong with you?" That's what I would imagine that conversation went something like. But, you know, I can't say for sure, but I know that his advice would not have been to say, "Sarah, when you get up there, I want you to just reach up and grab that judge's nose hairs and yank them out. And while you're at it, get a pair of pliers and grab a hold of his upper lip." Because that's essentially what it's essentially what she did with this sentencing statement. And the judge paid very careful attention to Sarah, and you could tell that in how he addressed her, showing great care and compassion for the aging star in this show. And he did it with this sentence.
The court has had the opportunity to review the evidence and testimony that was presented at trial, the victim impact statements presented here today, the statements of character witnesses, both orally and in writing, Dr. Harper's report and testimony, the defendant's testimony, pre-sentencing investigation, the arguments of the state and the arguments of the defense. The court pronounces sentence as follows. Ms. Boone, the court sentences you to life in the Department of Corrections with credit time served that Madam Clerk will provide to you momentarily. There are also court costs and costs of prosecution, which Madam Clerk will give you the totals of momentarily. Due to the court levying a life sentence, the court is inclined to liquidate those to a civil judgment unless I hear opposition from the state.
No opposition, Your Honor.
All right. Madam Clerk, if you could please give us the credit time served and the court costs.
Well, at the end of the day, she draws a life sentence. Now, it's not life without parole, which means that she can be paroled, and she's going to get basically 4 years of good time credit in the jail. Now, does the punishment fit the crime? I think it does. Just because the state could not prove malice murder or murder one doesn't mean that the judge doesn't think she's guilty of murder one. There's no way this thing happened by accident. There's no way that a rational man climbs into a suitcase by himself. Nor was there any way that the death was not completely intended. Now, in a situation like this, the judge can't go outside the sentencing range for the crime, but he can go all the way to the end of it, and that's what he did. Again, is this a just result? Tell me what you think. Drop a comment down below or send me an email. I don't care which. I think the judge hit a grand slam here. You'll have to tell me what you think. Well, that's what I have for you today. Thank you so much for being here and listening. Thank you for the suggestion to make this video. Even though I didn't really enjoy listening to Sarah in her pity party, I did think it provided at least a little comedy for me today. And if you have the opportunity today, putting all that aside, if you have the opportunity today, do something kind for somebody. Make up for the Sarah Boones of the world. Do something nice. Pay it forward. You'll make the world a better place. Have a great day, and then come on back down here tomorrow. Join me at the beach, and we'll talk about something else. I shouldn't have to say this, but you don't seek legal advice from a guy down at the beach. You seek it from a lawyer in a lawyer's office, where there are people running around in suits and secretaries and all kinds of other people. I'm just a YouTuber. I'm a retired attorney at this point, and although I retain my license to practice in the state of Missouri, I am not here dispensing legal advice. I'm just offering general content on the law. And here are some videos that YouTube thinks you may enjoy.